Hello everyone. Okay, so I have been sewing for the better part of 8-9 years, I want to say almost 10 years, and without a single doubt, the one question I get asked, I'd say like 98% of the time, is what sewing machine should I get? Now, this question is a loaded question because there's so many things to it, so I thought I'd do a video to break down everything and tell you guys what you need to do, or the things you need to really pay attention to when you're getting a sewing machine. Okay, if you didn't know, this is the Chin and Just Sewing Space where you learn to sew and style the wardrobe of your dreams. And if you're buying the sewing machine for a beginner, you don't really need to spend that much amount of money if you're buying a sewing machine for a beginner. You can, start off something small. But the feature that I think is really good now, especially these modern day sewing machines, is the speed function, especially if they're little kids. The speed function helps it so that if you set it to the lowest speed, no matter how much they press on the pedal of the sewing machine, it's not going to go past a certain speed. That way you're not scared that they're going to sew through their hands or anything, and you can monitor them. Even if you're just like a beginner sewist and you feel like the speed of the sewing machine is too much for you, this is a nice feature to get so that you sort of like grow with the sewing machine. You start off at a lower speed, then you as your confidence builds up and as you progress on the sewing, you can go faster and faster in your sewing. Now, the first thing you need to really figure out before you buy a sewing machine is what type of sewist are you. Okay, are you an apparel sewer, which is what I am, sew clothing and stuff like that? Are you a quilter? Nice lovely quilts out there. Are you even intending to sew bags and shoes? Are you going to be doing embroidery most of the time? This helps you at least start in the right direction of what type of sewing machine you should get. The next thing is your budget, because your budget lets you could decide on a brand of machine. Are you going to get from the big box stores, buy them in the box, or are you going to, and those type of machines are the ones that come in the box that you don't test really before you buy, are like your Brothers, your Singers, But if you're talking of the higher spectrum of sewing machines, and I'm talking like over $1,000 here, you're talking of the higher end, the Rolls Royce of the sewing machine world. You're talking of your Berninas, your Fafs, those type of sewing machines. You will not see them in store. You need to go to a dealer to get those ones. I don't even know if you can buy them online. Right? But if you're interested in those kind of machines, you can think of getting them second-hand or refurbished, So, like I said, these first 3 tips help you decide on where you're going to go. Now, the next thing you need to consider before buying a sewing machine is, do you want a sewing machine with plastic parts or metal parts? A lot of people are very picky when it comes to the machines. If you're sewing things like leather, if you're going to be sewing heavy denim, if you're going to be sewing upholstery fabric, then I would encourage you to get an all metal parts sewing machine, because those things are heavy duty. They need hard penetrating power. You don't need your plastic parts that wear and tear and can break on you at any given moment, and then those machines are expensive. Okay, they're expensive machines. You could get what they call straight stitch machines that just sew straight stitch only. Those machines are expensive. So tying back to my other tips, are you going to get them? Are you going to get it brand new? Are you going to get it refurbished? And if you're talking places to get it refurbished, there's some sites that sell refurbished and guaranteed sewing machines. You could go to yard sales, you know. Okay, someone might be clearing out their grandmother who just passed, you know, her things, her belongings, and they're having a yard sale and they're selling her sewing machines. You know, these machines may or may not have problems, but you need to factor in your servicing charges, because you need to get them serviced, fixed, find out what's working, what's not working, maybe buy a few parts, you know. So you, like, again, budget is very important in deciding what sewing machine you're going to get. Another thing that helps you, you know, like informs you of what sewing machine to buy is reviews online. I like leaving reviews for things because I know it helps me making a decision on what to buy, and probably is going to help someone else. Go read reviews online. You might be set on a particular sewing machine, but you read reviews and people have nothing but complaints about that machine, and you change your mind. So yeah, like, do your research is exactly what this is. Do your research, read reviews, so that you are, you know, better informed on the decisions you're trying to make. Okay, now that we've covered how to make decisions for your sewing machines, let's talk about the quality features you need in a sewing machine. First one is throat space. Okay, if you're going to be quilting, especially if you're making big quilts, throat space is important. Most machines that are dedicated quilting machines have longer throat space, and throat space is basically the space from where your needle is to the end of the sewing machine, you know, like to where all the dials and features are. Okay, that is your throat space. And for most home sewing, you know, apparel sewing, the throat space is not really that much, especially if you're talking of the lower price end of sewing machines. But if you go up in price, you know, the real estate for the throat space increases as well. The next feature I want you to consider when you're buying your sewing machine is the hook system. There's schools of thought that say it doesn't matter, but I personally, I've tried both, and by the hook systems I mean is your full hook system or your oscillating system. Okay, your full rotary hook system goes around and it catches the loop of the thread when it comes down. Okay. But your oscillating hook system does like a 180, I'd say. You know, it goes this way and this way, this way and this way. It doesn't make for fast sewing, in my opinion. It doesn't make for nice looking stitches. You know, it's, if it's in your budget, I'd say go for a full rotary hook system on your sewing machine. And you know, because it will say that on the packet, right? Or you can ask whoever it is that is selling the machine to you. Also do your review. When you're reading reviews online, you can find out what hook system does this sewing machine have. It's an important feature in your sewing machine. The next important feature I want you to check in your sewing machine is what we call solid state electronic. Okay? This simply means that your machine can go from one layer of fabric to 2 layers of fabric to 3, 4, 5, you get my drift, without you stopping or with the same speed and pressure, right? It sews with the same speed, penetrating power, pressure from 1 layer of fabric to 5 layers of fabric. Okay, there's some machines that for it to get over that hump of fabrics, you need to press down harder. You know, you need to start and stop, or it might not even penetrate the fabric in question, the layers of fabric you have. You don't want to do that. And the simple way to actually, apart from reviews, because this is not really a term you hear about a lot. I'll be frank about that. The only way, like the best way to find this out is to, when you're trying to buy your sewing machine, go with some thread and fabric that you'd like to, that you feel, okay, these are the kind of fabrics I'm going to be sewing on. You take it there and you test. Now, if you're buying a machine straight out of a box, I doubt that you'll be able to do this. So maybe when you get home, you test it out and see if they have a return policy. But if not, if it's at a yard sale, you know, you can test this out. Or if you go into a store, into a dealer where they let you test out the machines, this is your best bet for finding out a machine that has solid state electronic. The next really important feature, in my humble opinion, that I think you should have in a sewing machine is universal pressure. And this means the machine helps you decide on the pressure that the foot has on your fabric to hold the fabric in place, and the feed dogs move the fabric, you know, while you sew. You know, you don't need to put 2 layers of denim fabric and go and start changing the pressure of your foot, or you put in let's say like a silk fabric and you go and you start changing the pressure. No, that like you don't need that stress, trust me. So this universal foot pressure is the way to go, and it is going to say that on the packet. Again, do your research, do your homework, read reviews, and you should know this before jumping into purchasing the sewing machine. The next thing I think is a quality feature that you should have on a sewing machine is to find out what type of buttonhole the sewing machine has. And people, let me tell you, this is coming from someone who used to use a 4-step buttonhole sewing machine and who went to use an automatic buttonhole sewing machine. The difference is night and day. You cannot compare. Like, I know that like there are people out there that prefer 4-step buttonhole, which is like a manual type of buttonhole, which, if you don't know what that means, it means that you have to decide on the length of your sewing machine. You know, if the sewing machine, the buttonhole is basically, like most of times, is a rectangle like this. So you would manually set the buttonhole to sew down this way, change, and sew this way, change, sew this way, change, sew that way. Okay, but on an automatic buttonhole sewing machine, you just pop in your buttonhole. You just pop in your button on the buttonhole foot, and the machine automatically calculates the distance it needs to travel to sew to get your buttonhole ready. Trust me, it is a world of difference. It saves you on headaches, right? And I have a review of both sewing machines where one has a 4-step buttonhole and one has an automatic buttonhole, and I'll put that in the cards for you guys so you can check it out and see what I mean. The next thing that I think is worth spending that extra amount of money, you know, on yours, or to get you this feature on a sewing machine, is your needle threader. Ladies and gents, this is a game changer in sewing, because it just saves you so much headache for having to, and because like different needles have different eyes, you know, like that space where the thread goes through in the needle, and sometimes you're sewing with some nice silky fabric and you're using a size 9 needle and the hole is about that big. Trust me, you guys, you want a needle threader. And just so you know, like in the world of needle threaders, you have manual and you have automatic. Okay, the manual one is obviously, as the name implies, is you threading the needle yourself, right? Then even for the automatic ones, there are 2 types. Okay, So there's the one where you take the thread and you pass it through. Again, you can see all this in my review of my brother's sewing machine. You pass it through and you press down a lever and it threads your sewing machine for you, right? But if you go higher, like if you spend like $100, $200 more dollars, there's even a machine where you just put the thread and you press a button, people, and it threads your needle for you. Like, I feel that is fabulous. That is the next thing I have my eye on. Like, nobody needs that stress of threading it, especially if you're like sewing 2-3 projects, you know. Even if you're sewing the same project, you know, like, because it's something you're sewing yourself, you might decide to use one color thread on the lining, one color thread on the fabric, and who's got that time in life to be threading so many needles, you know, like with different colored threads, when you can just do everything with the push of a button. Okay, so this is a fantastic feature. I think it's worth considering, you guys, when you're trying to get a sewing machine for yourself. Now, another thing that you should consider when you're sewing, or is very important to note, is the stitches that your sewing machine has. And now, in all honesty, you see some sewing machines, they have 40 different stitches, 50 different stitches, some even have 100. You don't need all these stitches. Like, even myself, with my brother's sewing machine that has like, I'm sure it has like 40 something odd stitches, I can tell you that I've only ever used like 6 stitches maximum. 6 stitches maximum. So don't let the decision of what sewing machine to buy rest on the fact that, this machine has more stitches than this machine. It's just not that important. You do, however, need some basic stitches, and I'm going to tell you what those are right now. First, you need a straight stitch. I mean, like, how are you going to sew anything if you don't have a straight stitch, right? You need a straight stitch. You need a back stitch. This helps you lock your stitches from the beginning to the end, so that your stitches, you're not wearing your garments and your garments are falling apart on your body. Okay. Third stitch you need is a zigzag, because you might not have what we call a tri-motion stitch, right? Which is a stitch that moves to the front, to the side, and to the back. You use this stitch to weave the ends of your fabric. If you do not have a serger or an overlocker, this is a good replacement stitch. If you're sewing anything that has the ribbing, you know, at the arms or at the neck, this is a good way of attaching and weaving the ends of the fabric together. So that is another stitch you need. But if you can't get that stitch, make sure you get a zigzag stitch, because this will help. It also helps you when you're sewing your stretchy fabrics. You know, it's a good thing if the zigzag can have a varying lengths. So you use that to sew your stretchy fabrics so that your stitches don't pop when you're wearing them on. Okay, so I think that's like 4 or 5 stitches I think you need. The next stitch that is very, very important is your buttonhole stitch. Any machine you get needs to have a buttonhole feature, period. Okay, it doesn't matter. Obviously, like, I know I've talked about buttonholes before, but it doesn't matter if it's a manual buttonhole or an automatic buttonhole, but it has to have a buttonhole feature. Trust me. You think you don't need it right now, or I'll never sew with buttons, but you progress in your sewing life, in your sewing journey. You know, today you're not wanting to sew something, and tomorrow is the best thing you ever done with your sewing talent. So buttonholes are a must. So guys, I hope this short video helps you to figure out what kind of sewing machine you need to get, right? I know there's so many sewing machines out there. It can be so overwhelming. This video is just to give you the basics. I hope this helps, and don't go anywhere. Check out other great and amazing videos we have on the channel, and keep sewing and subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next video.